Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Summit Minerals Investor Webinar and Q&A session. I'm Dana Luca, the Investor Media Relations Manager. Today, I'm joined by Gower He, Managing Director, and Jonathan King, Exploration General Manager, to discuss Summit's recent announcement that the company has executed an agreement to acquire the highly prospective Mundo Novo rare earth project in Brazil. I'll pass over to Gower and Jonathan to tell us a bit more about the project. Please feel free to use the Q&A function throughout the webinar on the bottom of your screen if you have any questions. Gower, Jonathan, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time. Dana, 2024 has been a busy year for Summit as we expanded Summit's footprint into the niobium, rare earth, and lithium projects in Brazil. We finalized the acquisition in May 24 and progressed at what seemed like light speed for juniors in the space and learned a whole lot about what we could do in this new jurisdiction. We finalized our initial rock chip program at our flagship Ecuador project with astounding results and have commenced applications for a phase 1 drilling program. There were some initial hurdles as the company found its way around the different municipalities and their various requirements for exploration companies and are learning together with them on the best practices for each region going forward. We also expanded our Ecuador project's footprint at the last land auction and look forward to progressing more work on the area in the coming year. At the same time, due to all the positive attention the company has been getting in both Australia and Brazil, we are constantly presented with great opportunities to add to our already impressive portfolio. One such is the Mundo Novo niobium and rare earth project, which we announced a binding agreement on last week with completion subject to geological and legal DD. We want to take a closer look at this one as it is an advanced drill-ready project with 90% of the permitting already in place. And once the project passes our extensive DD process, this carbonatite project will greatly complement what Summit already holds in the niobium and rare earth space. I will now pass you over to Jonathan King to go over the technicals.
Good one, thanks, Gower. So just very quickly, a disclaimer, which you can all look at in your own time. Let's get into the investment highlights. Obviously, we are dealing with a carbonatite here, the Mundo Novo carbonatite, which you can see quite clearly displayed on the images to the right there. It is captured entirely within the concession, which is the red outline that you can see, the red square. It is similar in size and character to CBMM's Araxa carbonatite, which lies at the southern end of the Gower's alkaline province. Mundo Novo sits in the north of the same province, and we'll review that shortly. The upper 40 meters, in fact, it's probably a little bit more like 45 to 48 meters of this carbonatite is profoundly weathered. So that has important implications for our rare earths, as well as our niobium, which is redistributed. It is enriched in both niobium and rare earth. And we see this clay saprolite as having potential for IAC. The mineralization crops out at surface where it is significantly enriched, and then it basically peters out with depth. Pyrochlore, which is the primary host mineral for niobium in carbonatites, has been confirmed within some of the few diamond drill holes that have pierced into the fresh rock. And I think perhaps one of the most exciting features of this carbonatite is the fact that it's so under-drilled. And as you can see from the last comment there, 78% of all drilling is less than 30 meters. So there is a lot of space between the end of drilling and the top of fresh rock. And that has all potential to be mineralized for both rare earths and niobium. So a little bit more about the carbonatite. You can see it on the right-hand side here. It has a diameter of about 2.5 kilometers and a surface area of about 5.8 square kilometers. And it sits within this concession, which is 17.2 kilometers square. So we've got plenty of space to do whatever we need to do there. The project itself started life as a phosphate prospect. There is, in fact, a phosphate resource sitting on top of the carbonatite. And all that drilling that I just mentioned is really focused around the phosphate. It was only later recognized that there was significant rare earth and niobium potential available. And the company that holds the asset, being Edam, weren't confident. They are a fertilizer-based company, so they looked to do something with the niobium and rare earths, and they invited Summit to review the asset. So here we are. On the left-hand side, or my left, what you can see is some of the drilling highlights. There are a number of different types of holes here. There are air core holes, auger holes, which is the TH, RC holes, and there are diamond holes. And once again, if you look at the right-hand side of that table, you'll note very quickly there are some fantastic intercepts. We've got good grades, we've got good widths, and that's in both niobium and in the rare earths. We have a peak value in the rare earths of 34,900 ppm, which is 3.49%. So if we're targeting IAC style mineralization, then these are very, very significant numbers. So I guess we need to understand, where are we in this system? Why does it look so promising? Well, on the left-hand side, you can actually see where we sit. Project-wise, we've got Mundo Novo sitting up here in the top left-hand corner. This is Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. It's about 326 kilometers away to the southeast. We're fairly centrally located within Brazil as a whole, and we are out in the agricultural district. So hence the interest in fertilizers. I think the better story lies in the geology. And when we look at the geology, we can see the azimuth 125 lineament. This is the lineament which is basically controlling the emplacement of all the alkaline intrusives and carbonatites that we see sitting in the Gower's alkaline province, which is essentially running up this lineament. And like I said, in the southern part of this lineament, we've got Araxa and Tapira, and then more centrally, we have the Cataleo, niobium and phosphate occurrences. And as for us, Mundo Novo, we are sitting at the top end here. So we're just up in this neck of the woods up here. Another critical feature on us is, in fact, the Brasiliano lineament. And when you're focused on an intersection like this is an obvious point of weakness and an obvious point of intrusion for something like a carbonatite, and that's exactly what we have in Mundo Novo. So I think the setting is ideal, and the mineralization that we're seeing is really reflecting the fact that we are in the right location. Coming into the carbonatite itself, I thought it important to put up a pseudo section so that people can get a flavor of what we see in these rocks. So I've designed a pseudo section running from diamond hole 15 in the, I guess, west, to diamond hole 17 in the east. It's a good span of the carbonatite, and we're going from the altered host rock sections in the west to the actual through the primary carbonatite, and then into some other parts of the alkaline intrusive to the east. So here's the first hole. Really what you can see, hopefully that comes through clear enough, but the rock is just obliterated. It is completely weathered. You have a soil veneer up on top, or soil development in the top of the carbonatite, which is usually about 6 meters. Typically, that's where we see a lot of very high-grade rare earth mineralization. Sometimes there is niobium associated with this. But as we come down the profile, again, you can see it's just clay. The fabric is completely obliterated, and as we come deeper into the profile, we start to see a little bit of texture arising in the drill core. So that's hole 15. This is the next one across, hole 4. Same result. Once more, a slightly deeper soil profile, some fantastic looking numbers in the rare earth sitting up in that space. Again, some goethitic overprint. And then coming down towards the lower saprolite, where we're starting to see a bit of fabric preservation, but really the texture of the rock is just obliterated. So this is a very, deep clay profile. Hole 2, this is a very significant hole, a very substantial intersection of quite high-grade rare earth mineralization as well as niobium in this one. Unfortunately, I've only got the rare earths there. The change in color is primarily due to the fact that we are now sitting pretty much in the core of the carbonatite. So we tend to see a little bit more green coloration. But once more, the texture is just obliterated. And in this one, you can actually see in the lower right-hand side, there's a break in the box, and we've gone essentially from the clay, the base of the clay saprolite, into lower saprolite approaching fresh rock, saprock, fresh rock. So you're dealing with a very, very deep clay profile. And as we know, if we are dealing with an IAC style deposit here, you want these sorts of clays and you want the rare earth elements to be adhering to the clays. But the niobium itself, the pyrochlore will break down, and the niobium will also be redistributed through the clays. Sometimes it will bind to the clays, sometimes it will bind to the iron oxides that may be present in this upper part of the profile. So just the last hole to the east now. Once more, there's the clay profile. You can see here it's very, very deep, and it's just consistently deep, and the texture is just gone from the rocks. So very important. When it came to the phosphate resource, they couldn't actually recognize any of the rock type. Ultimately, they split it into 3 zones based on the regolith, the soil profile at the top, the clay zone underneath, and then the fresh rock. And that's what they modeled the phosphate resource on. And so that is telling you that they are not seeing any bedrock textures through this material in here. Another key point, you can see already the drill holes. A number of the drill holes just simply did not get down to fresh rock, leaving all this space beneath for potential mineralization. So let's discuss the rare earth potential first. If we look at the drilling and the by type on the right-hand side, you can see really a plethora of drilling concentrated around the center of the carbonatite. As I said, this drilling was primarily for the phosphate, not for the rare earth and niobium potential, but just to, the company did recognize the potential for niobium and rare earth, and so they started analyzing. If we look at the auger holes, there are 38 holes. They are this pink color that we see. The average grade, or the average depth, is 13.4 meters, so not very deep, but the average grade through those holes is 0.56% or 5,655 parts per million in the trio. So, outstanding numbers for an IAC, if it is an IAC. So this is something that we must prove, and we will be working towards that. It also shows the level of enrichment at the surface. And in fact, across nearly all the drilling here, we are getting very, very positive numbers, very strong rare earth numbers, and dispersed in amongst those are some very high level niobium numbers. Obviously, we've just shown this comment that many of the holes ended in mineralization, and therefore there is the expansion to depth, and that we see pretty good NdPr levels across all of these intersections. So to us, there is potential for magnetic rare earths. Obviously, I've shown you that this carbonatite is profoundly weathered, and that's very important for IAC style of mineralization. A quick discussion on niobium. You can see the distribution in the drilling below. You can see that it's fairly, looks to be a little bit more randomly oriented, or distributed, but with a concentration towards the middle here. This is around the core of the carbonatite. And what we see here is the drilling placed over the top of the soils. And you can see that there is a strong coincidence between the niobium high in the soils, which is the pink outline, white to pink outline, and then the drilling results. So we start to see I guess a coordinated picture But perhaps the best thing that arises out of this is this huge gap that exists where essentially most of the drilling is quite shallow. We don't really know what's happening at depth here, and we've got substantial space to grow a niobium resource in this area. So the drilling to date really for niobium, pyrochlore, as I said, comes up with the carbonatite. It's the primary host mineral. We would expect to see pyrochlore abundant, perhaps towards the core of the carbonatite. And at this point in time, there's only a handful of holes, 2 or 3 holes, that have even intersected the top of fresh rock. So there is no drilling at depth here. And what may exist at depth, we don't know, but we would anticipate that we would see a uplift in the levels of niobium towards the core of the carbonatite complex. Another point to make is, as I said earlier, this thing really is on scale. It's on par with Araxa, which lies at the southern end of the Goyas alkaline province. We are in the north. It's probably part of the same event, or time-wise, maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older. I'm not sure which way things moved, but it is definitely part of the same event. So a quick summary. What we see about this thing, what we like about it is that we've got power, we've got sealed rows, we've got a workforce right nearby. We're on flat land, unlike some of our peers in country who are up in hilly terrain. We're actually down on the flats. So, we can move equipment around readily. We can open up the country a lot more readily to access any ore positions. We know that the scale of this thing is comparable to some of our peers in country, which we think is a very positive feature. We know that the mineralization daylights at surface. We also know it's enriched in the surface, near surface. So basically, we would get into cash flow pretty quickly. We know that we've got excellent grades and widths in the niobium and in the rare earths. We see a lot of opportunities for both of those commodities, particularly at depth. And if you go and think back to that drilling diagram, there was a lot of space around the periphery of that carbonatite. The drilling was very much concentrated towards the middle. There's a lot of space available to the outside of the center of the carbonatite, which has potential to still host rare earths and niobium. And so we see a lot of potential around the carbonatite to grow resources in rare earths and niobium. We know that the upper part of the carbonatite is profoundly clay weathered, which again, you really do want for an IAC deposit. And I think that really that's pretty much where we're at. We just see a lot of potential in this project, and it's very early days. We're still doing our due diligence, but we're excited by what we see. And hopefully we'll end up with something like the picture on the right-hand side, which is Araxa as it sits today.
Perfect.
And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Now we'll go over to some questions. So, Jonathan, from an exploration perspective, what stands out about this project? And could you please elaborate on the unique characteristics of the deposit and its potential?
Well, I think the great thing about this project is, firstly, the fact that there is a lot of drilling there. So we've got a lot of information, but most of that drilling is shallow. Most of that drilling has ended in mineralization. So there is the need, of course, to take things deeper through the weathering profile. And what we'll see is, I think, as we drill through this weathering profile, is that we'll see numerous more rare earth intersections, numerous more niobium intersections, and that picture will become clearer to us. I love the fact that we've already got pyrochlore identified within the guts of the carbonatite. So that means that we know that there is niobium in the system. It's confirmed. So we just need to get in there and we need to drill. And that's really the answer, Dana. I think that that's the most exciting thing. Everything else is positive. It's flat. It's easy to access. We've got a deep weathering profile. We've got the right rocks. We know that the key minerals that we want to see are present in the system. Let's get in there and drill.
Sounds good. And we did touch on this already, but I'll still ask the question. Can you just discuss the project's competitive advantages, including the grade, location, and cost efficiency?
Well, I think the fact that it's, from a cost efficiency point of view, if you look at mining, because of that clay profile being so thick, this is essentially a free dig mining opportunity. So provided we can extract the rare earths, provided we can recover the niobium that's hosted within the clays, um, then we're in a free dig mining opportunity, which is just a fantastic position to be in. It's on flat land. We're not on hills. We're on major highways. We've got all the infrastructure that we need sitting right on our doorstep. I mean, it's just primed for development. So, uh, there's not much to really not like about it at this stage.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Gower, I might put this one to you. How will this acquisition impact Summit's existing projects, or will it shift the strategic focus in any way?
Dana, we remain focused on all of our existing projects. If we acquire Mondo, it will be because it ticks all the boxes from a geological and strategic perspective. Now, we're currently looking at all cost-efficient ways to expand our Brazilian and Australian teams to make sure we get the best results for our shareholders in the new year.
Great, and just cautious of time, we might make this the last one. So tell us, Gower, what is next for Summit, and what should shareholders look forward to over the coming months?
We've got a lot of activities planned for the coming months. So currently, we've finalized setting up our Brazilian subsidiary. We have initiated the title transfer process, as well as the additional tenants we won in auction in last August, which are being granted hopefully this month. We then look forward to our phase 1 drilling permits being granted early in the year and getting the analysis on the early bulk sample results from Ecuador. We also plan to do an extensive program of works on the greater Ecuador region, as well as starting some early geological and permitting works on our other portfolios in Brazil. Now, it's a lot of work in a jurisdiction that Summit has only entered in May last year. So we ask a bit of patience from our shareholders whilst we try to balance costs and efficiencies to bring value to our shareholders as quick as possible. Thank you.
Great. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Gower and Jonathan, for sharing your insights and taking us through the highlights of this exciting acquisition. And to everyone that joined us, thank you for your time. We're looking forward to keeping you updated. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of the announcement. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Good one. Thank you.
Yeah.